Obi-Wan and Yoda stand facing each other, robes shifting in the temple breeze, the ghost of the Clone Wars humming somewhere beneath their feet. It should be simple. One goes after the Emperor, one goes after Anakin. But then Obi-Wan opens his mouth. Master, perhaps I should face the Chancellor. Sith Lords are, well, my specialty. He says it gently, earnestly, like he's offering to make tea. But the Force hiccups so violently the walls nearly sweat. Yoda's ears twitch. Something gnaws at the edges of the future. A pulse, a wrongness, a quiet cosmic whisper that says, swap them, like fate is suddenly improvising. He closes his eyes, feels the disturbance, feels the shift. Right, you may be, he mutters, sounding like a frog who just realized his retirement has been delayed another decade. And Yoda sighs. The long, ancient kind. The kind that carries centuries of disappointment, flat taxes, and younglings who never put training sabers back where they belong. Anakin, I will face the Chancellor. You must. 2 simple sentences, and the galaxy tilts. Prophecy wobbles. Obi-Wan bows, masking dread behind impeccable posture. Yoda turns toward his shuttle, already regretting every decision that led him to this moment. And as they walk their separate paths, one toward Mustafar, one toward the Senate, the Force itself mutters, this is going to be a problem. Obi-Wan moves through the polished corridors of the Senate with the quiet determination of a man who has absolutely no idea why he agreed to this, but refuses to be impolite about it. Each step echoes. Each door hisses open. Each passing aide looks at him like, that's a Jedi, that's a problem, that's above my pay grade. He reaches the Chancellor's office. That cavern of red drapery, sinister furniture, and enough ambient foreboding to qualify as a workplace hazard, and pauses only long enough to adjust his robe. Presentation matters, even when confronting evil. The doors slide apart. Palpatine is already standing, back turned, doing something dramatic with the window and the city skyline, because of course he is. He pivots slowly, theatrically, like he scheduled this moment with a lighting crew. Obi-Wan inclines his head. Hello there. A greeting so polite it becomes an act of defiance. Palpatine's smile turns unnatural, too sharp, too eager. A man who has waited decades to reveal himself, and is now inexplicably being forced to debut the role opposite the Jedi who specializes in defense, patience, and passive-aggressive calm. Master Kenobi, he says, voice dropping into something cold and serpentine. How unfortunate for you. Obi-Wan sighs quietly. Palpatine ignites his saber with the flourish of a man convinced he's the star of the opera. Obi-Wan ignites his with the posture of a man who just wants this done in a civil manner. Then the Emperor lunges. The duel erupts instantly, red crashing against blue, fire slicing through shadow. But instead of being overwhelmed, instead of folding beneath the Sith Lord's ferocity, Obi-Wan holds. Every strike Palpatine hurls, every clawing lunge, every spiraling slash, every acrobatic burst of unnatural speed. Obi-Wan meets with perfect timing, perfect angles, perfect serenity sharpened into steel, a wall of Form 3 discipline, a lifetime of patience crashing into a lifetime of manipulation. Palpatine expected fear. He expected desperation. He gets neither. He gets Obi-Wan Kenobi, who blocks lightning like a man swatting a bug and counters each strike with the exhausted professionalism of someone who has fought 2 Sith Lords and raised Anakin Skywalker. The Emperor snarls. Obi-Wan steps backward, controlled, breathing steady. The air crackles. The red drapes tremble. Palpatine realizes, too late, that this Jedi might actually be a problem. Far across the galaxy, across fire, ash, and a planet that looks like someone microwaved geology, Yoda's shuttle drops into Mustafar's atmosphere like an elderly meteor with commitment issues. The ramp lowers. Heat rushes in. Rivers of lava churn below like angry soup. And there, standing in the glow of molten doom, is Anakin Skywalker. Or rather, a whining, smoldering, Sith-flavored version of him, pacing back and forth like a man rehearsing the worst breakup speech in galactic history. He turns as Yoda approaches, cloak swaying, ears unamused. You, Anakin snarls, molten rage bubbling in his voice. You shouldn't have come here. Yoda takes exactly 1 step down the ramp, squints at him like he's examining a disappointing report card, and sighs. Come to stop you, I have. Dramatic monologue. Skip, we shall. Anakin draws his saber, stance wide, rage trembling through every atom. Yoda just tilts his head, utterly done with everything. A shame, this is. And before Anakin can complete his villain speech, before the lava can reflect meaningfully off his eyes, Yoda lifts one clawed hand and snaps him sideways with a force shove. Anakin pinwheels through the air. He clears a rock formation. He clears a mining platform. He absolutely does not clear the lava. There is a hiss, a flash, a small defeated bloop. Yoda watches it all with the serene apathy of a man who has filed far too many incident reports in his lifetime. He dusts off his hands. Another life insurance claim, I get. He turns, steps back onto the ramp, and taps his comm as the shuttle rises. Kenobi? Finished I am. Quick work it was. He glances back once at the lava, mildly annoyed. Drama, too much he had. The shuttle banks toward Coruscant as Mustafar bubbles on, indifferent. One Sith down, one Emperor to go, and Yoda is already irritated. Meanwhile, back on Coruscant, Obi-Wan and Palpatine are still going at it. They crash through a wall, tumble across a walkway, and spiral down into the Senate chamber. Obi-Wan lands on a floating pod with the soft discipline of a man who practices perfect posture, even in free fall. Palpatine lands on his feet, then immediately slips, catches himself, and pretends it was intentional. But before the duel can resume, before lightning arcs or sabers clash, a voice echoes across the chamber. The Senate will now come to order. Obi-Wan freezes mid-stance. Palpatine blinks. They both turn slowly, because there, in the center podium, stands an actual senator, and another, and another. And oh no, there are hundreds of them. The Senate rotunda is full. Completely full. Every pod occupied, every delegate present. They are mid-session. Somewhere between budgetary allocation for Outer Rim infrastructure and should we regulate hyperlane toll prices. Two blurs of Jedi and Sith have exploded into the chamber, like uninvited performers at a tax conference. A silence falls across the Senate, the kind that precedes either diplomacy or absolute catastrophe. Palpatine straightens his robe, tries to smooth his hair, and hisses under his breath. I adjourned this session 2 days ago. Obi-Wan, panting slightly but maintaining impeccable politeness, replies, Apparently they resumed. A Grand Senator cautiously raises a trembling hand. Supreme Chancellor, are you dueling? Obi-Wan answers for him, because Palpatine is too busy trying to act like this isn't destroying his entire brand. Yes, sorry, terribly inconvenient timing. The duel reignites instantly. Palpatine flings a pod. It whips across the chamber, forcing senators to duck, scream, or file immediate workplace hazard reports. Obi-Wan leaps to the next platform, blocking lightning that ricochets into Section 32B. A Rhodian delegate's hair ignites. Someone shouts for the fire suppression droids. A Bothan slips out a datapad and starts live reporting the entire duel to the holonet. The Senate erupts into chaos. Some flee, some hide. A few stay because this is way more interesting than the tax hearing. Obi-Wan parries a downward strike, boots skidding across polished metal. Palpatine screeches, robes singed, dignity unraveling. Their fight spirals across pod after pod, each deflection punctuated by terrified screams, collapsing seats, and at least one senator yelling, "This is not parliamentary procedure!" Obi-Wan deflects a final blow that sends both of them sprawling into the Chancellor's platform, breathless, burned, exhausted. Palpatine snarls, but there's fear now. Obi-Wan tightens his grip, steady despite the chaos. A door hisses open behind them, footsteps echo, and a very small, very annoyed silhouette enters the chamber. The Senate chamber is a war zone. Smoke wafts through the air. Debris hangs from shattered platforms. Several senators have fainted. A few are taking notes for memoirs. Obi-Wan and Palpatine stand locked in yet another vicious exchange. Sabers grinding, robes torn, eyes wild, when the chamber doors hiss open with the casual authority of someone who has absolutely had it. A tiny green silhouette walks in. Slow, deliberate, deeply unimpressed. Yoda steps onto the Chancellor's central podium like a disappointed grandfather arriving to break up a fight between two children who should absolutely know better. He surveys the destruction. He surveys Palpatine, wheezing. He surveys Obi-Wan, exhausted. Then he speaks. Easy to beat Anakin was. 5 seconds it took. 2 days. You have fought. Why? The chamber falls silent. Obi-Wan nearly drops his saber out of sheer embarrassment. Palpatine sputters. Actually sputters. Because being critiqued for inefficiency is somehow worse than being stabbed. Obi-Wan clears his throat, attempting dignity through scorched robes. Well, he's very fast. Yoda squints. So, move faster, you should. Palpatine, indignant, lifts his saber to reassert his authority, only for Yoda to flick 2 fingers and send him skidding backward across the podium. Lightning crackles as the Emperor drags himself upright, face contorting. "You meddlesome!" Yoda raises a hand. "No! Speak not! Tired I am!" The Force itself freezes. Obi-Wan straightens beside him, relief flooding his stance. Together they advance, calm and coordinated, ancient mastery woven into deliberate steps. Palpatine retreats, cloak scorched, dignity in tatters. He hurls lightning at Obi-Wan, who deflects it cleanly this time, then whips his blade toward Yoda, who bats it aside with disdain. For the first time, the Emperor's confidence fractures. 2 Jedi, 2 masters, 2 different styles meshing into one relentless advance. Obi-Wan presses with perfect defense, driving Palpatine into angles he can't escape. Yoda attacks with sharp, precise bursts, each one forcing the Sith Lord off balance. Palpatine lashes out wildly. Senate pods fly, lightning arcs, the podium shudders under his desperation, but the momentum is gone. The duel has shifted. The Emperor is losing. A final coordinated strike. Obi-Wan disarms him, blade knocked loose, spiraling into the dark. Yoda sends a pulse of raw force that slams Palpatine into the Chancellor's seat, pinning him there with a deeply symbolic thunk. The Senate stares. The Emperor trembles. Obi-Wan exhales, finally steady. Yoda lowers his hand, ears drooping in fatigue. "Ended. Your plan is," he says, voice low. Palpatine snarls, throat raw. "You think this stops everything?" Yoda taps the armrest beside him, hard enough to emphasize, soft enough to be petty. "Yes." The Force settles. The Senate murmurs. Somewhere above them, a single floating pod gives up and falls with a resigned crash. Obi-Wan deactivates his saber, breath shaky but proud. 2 Sith down, 1 Empire collapsing before it begins. And just like that, after lightning, lava, bureaucracy, disappointment, and 2 full days of Obi-Wan refusing to fall over, the Sith are done. Palpatine, Supreme Chancellor, Dark Lord of the Sith, Master of Shadows and Screaming, lies slumped in the wreckage of his own podium, pinned under a mountain of rubble and regret. Armed guards march in, they take 1 look at Yoda, 1 look at Palpatine, and they slap the set of cuffs on him. "By order of the Senate, you are under arrest." He tries to snarl, summon lightning, monologue, anything, but all he manages is a tired wheeze that sounds like an asthmatic whoomp rat. The Senate gathers for an emergency vote. Not about war, not about treason, about where to send him. Democracy, for once, is unanimous. Life imprisonment in the spice mines of Kessel, with Jar Jar Binks. A hush falls over the chamber. A quiet, collective oof. Even Obi-Wan winces. Yoda nods solemnly, because this, finally, feels like balance. And Palpatine? Palpatine screams. Jar Jar, meanwhile, is thrilled. He introduces himself to the former Emperor as his new bestest work buddy, and Palpatine immediately loses the will to live. The galaxy watches the transport ship depart with equal parts horror and catharsis. With 1 Sith melted and the other sentenced to manual labor with Gungan commentary, the Galactic Senate must now explain everything. Naturally, they lie. A lot. The official report is released. Heroic Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker bravely ended the war by sacrificing his life on Mustafar, defeating the Separatist leadership. The senators nod solemnly. No one asks questions. No one mentions lava. No one mentions screaming. The Senate then pivots to its next favorite hobby, pretending nothing happened. They unanimously elect Bail Organa as Chancellor. Bail, blinking, holding the nomination datapad, mutters something about not wanting this and being very tired. A senator slaps him on the back and says, "Congratulations, the whole Empire thing was obviously just a phase." The others nod. Someone laughs nervously. Someone else brings out refreshments. Within an hour, the atmosphere shifts from constitutional collapse to office potluck. Senators wander around saying things like, "Ha! Remember when he said, 'I am the Senate'? Wild times. Did you know making yourself emperor isn't even legally binding? Let's never talk about this again." History, shaken violently, decides to go along with it. And then there's Yoda. Small, ancient, covered in scorch marks, carrying life insurance claim forms for Jedi who absolutely did not survive Order 66. He files them all. Personally, every last one. Insurance droids look at the casualty numbers, blink, process, and immediately approve every payout, because no one wants to argue with a tiny green creature who could fold them into origami. By the end of the week, Yoda is obscenely wealthy. He invests in real estate, buys 3 lakes, rebuilds the Jedi Order's financial reserves single-handedly. When asked how he managed it, he simply replies, "Good premiums they paid. Obi-Wan suspects fraud. Yoda denies nothing. Balance, after all, must be maintained." Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. It truly means more than you know. If you enjoyed this chaotic little rewrite of galactic destiny, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell, so you never miss another deep dive into absolute cosmic nonsense. This has been Canon Chaos.